Welcome, everyone, to The Self Within. Today, we have a really interesting conversation. We're going to be really diving into a blend of three different things, looking at science, sound, and emotional healing, especially how our voice can reveal emotional patterns that we might be holding on to, subconscious beliefs. In essence, what our body is holding on to that is keeping us from reaching our full potential. So I am joined by Deepak Chari, who is co-founder of the Chari Center of Health. He is an engineer and a certified biofeedback specialist. He is also the creator of the Life Transformation Technology Program using advanced voice biofeedback, which can help to promote emotional healing, mental clarity, and peak performance. Welcome, Deepak.
Thank you for having me, Annabelle.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this topic because I'm definitely the type of person that believes that there are so many different tools and modalities out there that can help us in one way or another dig deeper into those layers of conditioning that we have, pre-programmed things that we've maybe come into this life with, or things that we've learned along the way through experiences. And oftentimes these things, either we consciously are aware of them or we're not. And they can hold us back from really achieving certain things. They can bring up fears or anxiety or a lot of other emotional, mental, even physical things that show up in our body. I'm so curious to learn more about you and your background. So, you're an engineer, and that's part of your training. How did you make that leap from science and tech to doing the work that you're doing right now, which is very emotional? You're helping people with things that they're struggling with, right? What was that catalyst or the turning point for you that really said, okay, like I'm going to take what I know and blend it and do this other thing and maybe follow a new direction?
That's a great question, Annabelle. Yes, I have an engineering background of a Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science degree in engineering. And the only reason I went into engineering is because my father was an engineer.
Mm,
Okay. So the thing is, when we were growing up as kids, we were brought up in natural ways of healing from our mom.
mm,
And so that's kind of how we thought. And this will all make sense as I piece this all together. And how I got into this work is very interesting because it all started when I was a kid. My parents came to this country in the early 60s, basically late 50s, early 60s. My father first came, and then my mother followed after him. And I was the firstborn Indian kid in the US at that time, so generation.
mm.
So I guess people are not used to seeing people like me. They didn't really know where to place my sister and I. We were two kids. But for me, it was the physical kind of thing that I got as far as bullying. Okay. So I got a lot of bullying happening. So I was hiding out. I was like, okay, trying to avoid people. I didn't fit in. So I was like, gosh, this is scary. I think I'll hide in the library. So I was hiding in the library a majority of the time. This is probably since I was 7, 8, and onwards. And since I was hiding in the library, I had some extra time there. And so I was like, okay, I got to do something here. So I grabbed books off the shelf, and I didn't realize those books were on the law of attraction, which I didn't know what the heck a law of attraction was, of course, at that time. I grabbed books by W. Clement Stone, Napoleon Hill, As a Man Thinketh, and so many other inspirational books. And those gave me a lot of confidence and courage and motivation that maybe there's another world out there. So as I got older, I thought, gosh, when will this bullying end? Probably when I'm an adult, right? Like 18 and up. But boy, I have a long way journey, don't I? So as I got older, it went from pushing me around and, tripping me and all those kinds of things other kids do when they're not so nice, I guess,
Mm.
to junior high and high school where it was more like, well, you don't fit in our class. In fact, and you don't fit in our group, excuse me. We have the jocks and we have the art majors and all this, but you kind of don't fit anywhere. So you're kind of in your own group. So I
Mm.
was like, wow, I don't even have a group. I'm all alone. So that happened junior high, high school. So I thought, okay, now I'm done with high school. Now this is bullying will be all done. But it transferred into a different kind of bullying because then that's when I wanted to be an engineer. I went to the dean of engineering and I said, I would like to be an engineer, thinking he's going to motivate me. That's wonderful. Here, let me get you started. But he said, you know what? I don't think you have what it takes. I think you're better suited for the building on the other side of campus. I said, well, the only other building that I can think of, I know what you're talking about, that has to be the theater department. So you want me to be an actor? You think I'm better suited to be an actor than an engineer? Well, you seem to have those qualities. Yeah. I don't know if you have what it takes to be an engineer,
Wow.
with a smirk on his face. Then I was like, I was 18, 19. I was like, oh, I'm gonna show you. You don't know who I am. You don't know who you're messing with and
My
all that
God.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
18-year-old, rebellious kid, right?
Yeah.
So I said, I'm gonna be the best damn engineer you ever saw. You're gonna regret your decision for saying that. So I kicked butt and I got my bachelor's degree. And I said, I'm gonna show you more. I'm gonna get a master's degree. Ha ha ha. It's one of those deals. So I kept doing it for that reason. So it would be nice if you just supported me in the beginning, but I did it that way. Now, along the way, though, Annabelle, I was drawing other people in my life, classmates, friends who were mean, narcissistic, condescending, manipulative, just negative, controlling, every negative word in the book.
Mm.
These were my quote unquote friends and classmates. And I drew relationships, in this case with the female side, who are bullying and manipulative and all that as well. I drew professors like that. Every professor was like that. And I was working part-time jobs also while I was going to school. All my bosses and supervisors and managers were also mean, condescending, all that. So my whole day was like that. So I thought, wow, this bullying thing keeps going on and on. Wow, well, I guess I have to accept these are how friends are. I guess just take what you can get, even though that's not what I want as friends. So this lays the foundation. So as we go forward in time, when my father was 51, back when we were teenagers, like 17 or so I was, my father suddenly died of a massive heart attack. And I would always give him his pharmaceutical medications for his blood pressure and stuff like that, because the doctor said, do all these things, it's supposed to heal you up. So when he died suddenly, when we were teenagers and my mom was suddenly a widow, we thought, why did this happen? How did this happen? And how can we prevent this from happening to anyone else when we were teenagers?
Mm.
So fast forward to 1999, my sister and I decided to form the Chari Center of Health. Chari is our last name. And we wanted to form an integrative functional medical center that goes to the root cause versus the symptoms, but uses a natural, safe approach without the pharmaceutical approach. Because you can see how it worked well with my father. He passed away at such a young age. And so my sister, as a medical doctor, started working on countless people. I saw, as I was managing the business, still working as an engineer, I saw, wow, look at all these people she's healing and transforming their lives. Then as I was working as an engineer, improving productivity and efficiency in all these manufacturing companies, it was nice. But I thought, if she changes someone's life, that changes everything, their family and everything. I think I would like to do that. But I don't have a medical degree. So remember, I had the Law of Attraction books I grabbed from the shelf when I was a kid. This all connects. I suddenly thought of that. Yeah, I remember reading about that. Okay, I'm going to ask the universe. Universe, can you in some way help me to work in our Chari Center of Health that I'm managing to somehow heal people? I know I don't have a medical degree or any medical background, but with my engineering degree, could you somehow help me to heal people in some way? I just said it just as vague as that, and I kind of forgot about it. I didn't realize that's called detaching from your outcome so you can let it manifest. I didn't know that. Then I kept working as an engineer in the field. 2 weeks later, some friends came up to me and said, Deepak, this guy's going to be speaking in Santa Monica, California. We were in San Diego at the time, about how your voice reveals everything that's limiting beliefs, negative emotions, negative thoughts, limiting patterns from your voice, from your subconscious mind that can be determined from your voice. I go, really? Yeah. And most importantly, how you could create computerized voice maps to find out what frequencies and harmonics and high-end scalar waves could be sent to the person to release those limiting emotional patterns quickly and easily, regardless of how long you've had those patterns. And I thought, wow, that sounds pretty cool. So I started listening to his presentation, and all these light bulbs went off in my head. And I said, wow, maybe this is something I could do at our Chari Center of Health because it's technical. And then I thought, wait a minute, maybe I could clear this bullying pattern I've had forever. Is this possible?
Mm.
So I went up to him and I said, I would like to apprentice with you to learn. I know you created the software for this technology. I'd like to apprentice with you how you clear these emotional patterns in people. He goes, okay, I'm only taking a handful of people. You'd be pretty much my last one. And I was there in the right time in the right place.
Right.
Because after that, he didn't train anybody else because he had all these health conditions. So that was the universe helping me out. So after he watched me in the trenches working on people, clearing their depression, anxiety, fears, phobias, emotional trauma, and other emotional patterns, he goes, I think you've got it down. So I said, great. Now then, as an engineer, I took what he taught me and I took it to another level and I advanced things, shortened things, and made things more efficient. And that's where, as you told the audience, I created my life transformation technology program. So once I created that, I said, I'm going to work on myself first before I work on a single client. And guess what? I was able to clear that bullying pattern. It was like the movie The Matrix. It was a program I was dealt, but it was not something I was going to have forever. Because once I cleared that bullying program that I had my whole life, I started drawing loving, nurturing, supportive people in my life. And by the way, I had no concept of what a loving, nurturing, supportive people were. And the reason I tell your audience this is even if you've never had a wonderful relationship or friendships or business partnerships that were all narcissistic or mean or manipulative or controlling, and you say, I don't even know what that's like to have a nice relationship, you can have it. All hope is not lost. You can have it. That's why I'm telling your audience that. So then I started working on one person after the next, suddenly thousands of people all over the US and world, starting with my own journey of being bullied to helping thousands of others in all kinds of other areas: anxiety, depression, fears, phobias, emotional trauma, self-sabotage patterns, where you mean to do something well and you sabotage yourself in your success,
Yeah.
fear of the future, fear of the past, regret of the past, guilt, shame. It doesn't matter what it is or how long you've had it. So that's how I got on my journey as an engineer doing this work.
So what is it about the voice versus other parts? And I realized that you attended this workshop or this seminar where you heard someone talk about it, but from your experience and you've been doing this now for a while, what is it about our voice? And when I really think about it, it's kind of scary because I mean, our voice is everywhere, especially now in today's day and age where we're doing videos and on social media or just podcasts in general or talking at a presentation in a meeting. Our voice is so powerful. And I mean, from that perspective, I understand, but I would love to sort of know, like, is there a science behind it? Is there something else that maybe I'm missing?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. Your voice, as you said, is super powerful. It's a reflection of every cell in your body. Did you know that when you speak about anything, we think we're just speaking with our voice, right? We're speaking with all 60 trillion cells of our body at the same time, in unison, like a full orchestra. It's
Wow.
not just our voice. Yeah, it's very powerful. And I also found in my research, as you said, doing this for a while, for 20 years as of this year, I have found that the voice is the most direct interpretation of your subconscious mind and the most accurate reflection of your subconscious mind that there ever is.
Mm.
So if you're feeling angry or upset or sad about something, your voice will reflect that. And in this doing this work, I'll be able to pick up other things that you didn't even know are there that are also a part of it, that you didn't even know are part of it. And I can help clear those, whatever those issues are. Limiting beliefs, limiting thoughts, fear of the future, regret of the past, guilt, shame, traumas, whatever it is. But your voice is super powerful. So think of it like this. For all of your audience, if they've ever played an instrument, and even if they didn't, it's okay. Think of a piano. We see all these keys on a piano, right? But there's only 12 keys that repeat, just 12 keys. Well, guess what? Every cell in our body has a keyboard, those 12 keys. And I listen for that. All 60 trillion cells in your body have a keyboard.
Mm.
Now, if we have these limiting emotions, negative emotions holding us back, those negative emotions will squash certain keys in our voice from being heard. If we have a lot of those emotions, most of our voice won't be heard. Doesn't matter how loud we speak, because only the other notes will be heard louder. So imagine grief will squash certain notes. Anger squashes different notes of the keyboard. Fear, worry squashes different notes. Low self-esteem, low self-worth squashes different notes, so on and so forth. So I listen for that. I listen for the notes I don't hear in the voice versus the ones I hear. And if I don't hear those notes in your voice, by the way, no one else will either. And if they don't hear you, guess what? They don't see you. Even if it's a podcast, if they don't hear you, they won't hear you fully. Even they won't get your message. So that means you're going to be liberated to a whole nother level when you release those limiting patterns because all the notes will be heard in your voice. So the thing is, for example, I worked on a lady, okay? She went through so many trials and tribulations in her life, and she was speaking to women to empower women, right? So she spoke and she made DVDs and videos and CDs and all kinds of stuff like that. She spoke to her audience in passion. I went through abuse and struggle and emotional and physical abuse and all this stuff, and I got through it. If I got through it, you can too. So you would think, gosh, everyone, all the women should stand up and cheer for her, right? That didn't happen. People weren't even looking at the stage when she spoke. Nobody stood up at the end when she gave her final dramatic conclusion. No one came to her table to buy any of her courses.
Wow.
So she came over to me for a session. She said, Deepak, what's going on? Can you please look at my PowerPoint? What do I need to change in the wording? Because nobody cared. And been doing this for like 5, 10 years, I think, 10 years, I think. So I looked at her PowerPoint and I go, well, I listen to voice, but I'll look at your PowerPoint. It's not really what I do, but
Yeah.
so I looked at her PowerPoint and I go, okay, your PowerPoint is perfect. Okay. She goes, okay, well then what's the deal? Well, it's not the PowerPoint, okay? She goes, well then what is it? Well, it's you.
Oh,
What do you mean? I said, it's your voice. When you're speaking to me about your frustration about all this, I can barely hear a lot of the notes in your voice. And I do this for a living. If I can't hear the notes in your voice, guaranteed your audience won't. And if they don't hear you, they won't see you. And they won't respect you. They won't understand you. And that's why that happened. But no, all hope is not lost. You're in front of me right now. So let's go ahead and take care of it. So I started clearing these limiting emotional patterns, which all came from our childhood. I'll talk about that shortly. And then when I cleared it, then I said, I want you to do something for me. What, Deepak? I want you to speak to that same group of women again with the exact verbatim same PowerPoint presentation that you asked me to check out for you. Deepak, that was the most humiliating thing. Why would I do that? I said, trust me, you're not the same woman. Trust me. So she goes out, not believing it, gave the exact verbatim same presentation. And as it was building to the climax, some tears were coming from these women's eyes. And at the end, they all stood up and cheered and clapping loudly. Never happened in her life before.
wow.
They ran up to her table, bought her courses, videos, everything. And she said, Deepak, I can't believe it. First time in 10 years, I've never had anybody do this in all of my presentations. Thank you so much. So that was just a reflection of how our voice can be squashed by those limiting emotions.
Mm,
So that's why when you release those limiting emotions, and I do it by resonance, that's how you can release these patterns. But all of these patterns come from your childhood.
right. Yeah. And I was thinking when you were talking about the resonance and the frequency that squashes certain emotions, right? Well, the one thing that came to mind was I like to listen to a lot of sound frequencies on YouTube. And oftentimes I send my clients sound frequencies to listen to, depending on what we're working on, right? If we're working on like a particular chakra, I'll send like a heart chakra sound frequency. So are we talking about like the same thing with the frequencies and the resonance? It's like every chakra I know has a different sound, like a piano key, right? If we're talking about piano.
Yeah.
Um, and then you also have these solfeggio frequencies. And I mean, think about a sound bath, right? Is this all the same? Does it all benefit the same thing, or is it like very, very different?
Sure. No, that's a great question. So this is a little bit different, but there's a similar concept, okay? Like you're mentioning certain frequencies for the heart chakra, certain frequencies for the crown chakra, and so on and so forth. But when I'm doing this work, it's working on the person mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, in all areas. Because not only do I find the emotions that are holding them back, I can actually trace it to where they're holding it in their body, which
Mm,
is that energy center or chakra. So I'm actually
right.
addressing that as well at the same time, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So when I'm sending these frequencies and harmonics to them, I'm covering everything versus like, okay, I better send a heart one. Okay, this one. But
Got
I
it.
mean, I can do that, but it's already taken care of it because they might have a block in the heart chakra, but they may also have a block in the crown chakra and another one. So instead of like, I better send the crown one, I just send everything that they need in that moment, you see? And I will only send to them what their subconscious is requesting in that given moment. That takes this work to another quantum level. Because, for example, let's say they need like 10, 15 frequencies, and they most likely do. They say, Deepak, send them all to me. I can handle it. And I'll say, just like Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth, right? So, so I'll ask I'll say, I know what you want, ma'am, but let me ask your subconscious faster than you blink your eye. That's how fast the subconscious responds to me. So I said, subconscious of this woman, I know she wants all 15, but just tell me, what is her subconscious really ready to receive? Okay, send me that one, not that one, not that one. Yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. This happens faster than you blink your eye. Okay. She doesn't even know I'm asking her subconscious these questions. So I only send what her subconscious requested from me, even though I know she needs all of them. And then it's always a perfect match every time. You see, I'm not fire hosing. A lot of other people, and I'm not saying anything, they may just fire hose a billion frequencies to the person. Yeah, they need them, but they can't handle it,
Mm,
all at once. So I send it in morsels they can handle, right? If I cooked every food item that you loved, I can sort of cook, And if you said, God, these are all my favorite items, I said, okay, I'll watch you eat them all. I gave you five appetizers, five main courses, and five desserts. Go for it. Deepak, I can't eat all of that. I love all of them, but I'll maybe eat one or two appetizers, maybe one main course and one dessert. Well, why not? Because I can't digest them all. I got to
Oh, yeah.
process it. Same
Mhm.
concept. So, in answer to your question, it's a similar theme, but it's even to another quantum level because I'm working with the whole body and whatever it needs. You're right. Every chakra, energy center has a different musical note. But there's different mixes of and harmonics of the notes also based on where the block is and or energy, where the emotion is stored.
Got it.
So that answers your question there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit more about like how does it actually work, right? So you're talking about going into the subconscious, even asking the person subconscious, like, hey, can I give you all of these frequencies? So in
Yeah.
essence, or in like really simple terms, how does it actually work?
Okay, so when I'm working with the client and all my sessions are done remotely, they basically have a computer with a headset, with the USB headset plugged into their computer, and a technology I ship to them that they place their hand on or hand chakra on. And I send the frequencies into their hand into all 60 trillion cells of the body at the same time at the rate that they want to receive them. So it's based on galvanic skin variability. So in other words, when they place their hand on this technology that sends the frequencies into their whole body energy system, it's actually looking at their pulse rate, their heart rate, even the sweat on their hands and temperature of their hands. It's looking at all these different variables. And by that, when I send these test frequencies, this is like happening faster than you blink your eye to their subconscious and it says, do you want this? No. This one? Yes. But not like that. It's like it might ask all 15 frequencies in a fraction of a second, you know, but it'll tell me like a readout, like yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yes. And I'll
Oh,
only
got
send
it.
it in that exact sequence that this client will always need and in the perfect way, in the perfect amount and proportion. So rather than just say, okay, let's balance your heart chakra, just listen to this. But maybe the crown chakra is off. Maybe the solar plexus is off too. Maybe you need certain more in the solar plexus and just a little less in the heart chakra. This will take care of all that the way I do it. It's very eloquent because your body's not like a separate system. Like it's not just, oh, I just have the heart chakra as a block. I
Right.
guarantee you it's more than one. And they work in synergy with each other,
Always, always.
right?
I've always found that it's like it's so interesting when I work with people. It's like what starts in one area or someone comes in for like a leg issue or whatever the case is, other things pop up simultaneously and it's like they're all talking with one another and they're all interacting and it's like you have to clear them all for it to work, for it to be balanced or released.
Exactly. And also in the exact sequence they need. Maybe
Mhm.
it'll clear this chakra, then go to that one, then come back this
Right.
to that one. It's
Yeah.
that sophisticated the way I do it. So, and it's, it's faster than you can even understand. And you don't need to understand it. That's the cool thing. When I work with you, you don't have to understand how
Yeah.
this whole process works at all. I worked on a lady who was 90. She didn't understand a word I was saying about how this technology is. And she had been going to therapy for 65 years. Therapy, not how old she was, going to therapy for 65 years, okay?
Wow.
How am I going to compete with that? And she had a lot of severe depression. So she came to me somehow, amazingly, and she said, "How I've never cleared this depression in 65 years." I said, "Well, I'm going to use a whole new innovative approach than you've ever done before." So I started doing this advanced voice biofeedback technology with her. And in a couple months, doing only one session a week, I was able to clear that depression completely that she had for 65 years. And she had no friends. Everyone hated her. She had no passion for living another day in her life. So I said, oh, I can't have that. So I cleared those limiting patterns. And soon after I started clearing these patterns, soon after I started doing sessions with her, people started leaving gifts at her door that she didn't even know. Like she'd go to a retirement apartment complex and all these gifts were at her door. Wine, cheese, bread. It's like, who are these people? They apparently thought she's the main communicator for the whole complex.
Oh
Remember,
my
no
God.
one wanted to talk to her. No one had wanted anything to do with her,
Yeah.
right? And so new people coming in and said, well, I heard you're the main person for this place to connect everyone. And she said, me? And then suddenly all these people wanted to be friends with her. Like,
Oh,
please be my friend, please. Yeah, this really happened. And then they started inviting her to all their family reunions. And she's not even a family member. So she got invited to all these parties and she was so thrilled. But then she came to me for a follow-up session. She said, Deepak, I have a problem. I said, ma'am, what problem? You were depressed your whole life. Now you have everyone loving you, giving you gifts, inviting you to all their events. You were never invited to anything. People were treating you mean. Everyone's treating you nice. What's the problem? She said, well, Deepak, everybody's invited me to all their functions and parties. I cannot physically even go to all of them. I'm going to have to say no to half of them. How do I say no? Can you teach me that? I was like, there is no problem. I can easily teach you that, okay? So, yeah, it was very, very amazing. And she didn't understand a word of how the technology works. So that's the cool thing. You don't need to understand it at all. Just participate with me in the process. So
Mm.
that's all I say. And I wanted to just add here, would it be okay to explain to your listeners where these patterns even come from?
Yes, yes, please, please go ahead.
Okay. So as I mentioned, as I refer to it, these all come from our childhood. So a lot of people might say, what do you mean? I'll say, okay, let me explain to you. There's four phases after studying this for many years that everyone goes through, whether you like it or not. We all go through this. There's four phases. Phase one, when your parents decide to, and I'm being very open here, to procreate you as a child, every thought, feeling, and emotion they had in that moment as they're procreating you goes into your energy field as you're this tiny little thing that's energy that's being formed. So if you go to the store and you buy a brand new laptop, there's nothing on the hard drive, clean as a whistle, right? That's who you are. But you have the energy field of all their unresolved emotions. What if your dad and mom had guilt, shame, regret? Maybe they weren't so happy in the relationship. Maybe they're not happy in their life with where they are right now, or they're frustrated with their past, or they were not as far as they wanted to be in life, or they had a lot of traumas and tribulations in their life. All that stuff goes into the mix. Certain percentage, which I can actually find out for you and tell you what it is, goes into your energy field. 50%, 80% from both mom and dad. But guess what? Not only that, but you get the unresolved issues from your parents, not only parents, but your grandparents on both sides, your mom's side and your dad's side. Now you might say to me, Deepak, I don't need to worry about the grandparents because they all died before I was born. I say, no, you do. You need to be aware of that because even though they all passed away, their energy's in the energy field. So if your grandfather had, different addictions or depression that he never resolved in his life, you get a certain percentage of their unresolved issues. In fact, you may get more of them than of your own parents. That's very common. Downloaded to you. So now you have your unresolved parents' issues and your unresolved grandparents' issues on both sides. And you're a clean hard drive otherwise, but you have that going there. That's phase one. Phase two, you're in your mom's womb for 9 months. Whatever she's thinking, feeling, regretting, maybe in the relationship with your dad, maybe they're fighting also, or whatever, or her frustration or life, she wanted to jet set around the world. Now she's having this kid. Maybe she wasn't ready to have a kid, so the kid feels unwanted. That goes directly, those emotions, to the kid. Okay? They may, if they feel unwanted, or unloved, or scared because of the fighting between mom and dad. Then you go to phase three. What's phase three? Phase three, you're born. Hey, I'm born. But now you already had two phases done, and you're now just being born. Now you have the direct interface of whatever your mom and dad and even grandparents or other people older than us, teachers, uncles, aunts, tell us. And this is the key thing. From age 0 to 7, I found out with so many studies,
Mm.
whatever is said or told to you in those years, especially, goes directly in your subconscious. No judgment, no questioning. So if the parent said, I thought you'd be a lot smarter or a lot prettier or a lot, more intelligent than you were. I wish you were like this. Or why couldn't you be like that kid across the street? Why couldn't you be like our neighbor, the neighbor girl? Look how pretty she is. Look how tall she stands. Why couldn't you be like her? So what's the message? Well, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of even being loved, probably. And what if that parent didn't even know how to share love? They don't even know what love is. That kid doesn't know what love is either. So guess what they draw in their life? You know what? So not having love. So that all goes into the mix during that time from 0 to 7. And then from 8 to 12 is more of the same. You might question a little bit, like, is that really true? But you pretty much said, yeah, that's true. I'm not worthy of being loved. I don't deserve success or happiness. I'm not worried. I'm not good. I'm not talented or skilled or intelligent. You may, whatever negative thoughts were shared in that time. And then what if you're bullied and intimidated by other kids when you're a kid, like I was, but you may have had, or abuse, unfortunately, which a lot of kids have gone through that I've worked with adults as kids they went through. That goes into the mix as well, 0 to 12. Now, from 0 to 12, whatever happened in those years, Annabelle, is how you see the world from then onwards and what you draw into your life over and over again, like Groundhog Day. Because then comes phase four. What's phase four? Phase four is when you take phase one, two, and three into your own life and create those same patterns of your parents and grandparents into your own life. And then guess what? Into your kids' lives. And guess what? Your kids do the same thing. This continues. So what this program I've created is so innovative. It will clear all those four phases in your life. So you're completely out of the matrix. And for your kids, the same thing. You're changing your life and all the future generations there onwards. So whatever limiting patterns had in your ancestry, you're like a rocket taking off out of that whole area, going into uncharted territories of happiness, success, confidence, growth, and bliss in all areas of your life.
Yeah, it is super interesting the fact that, oftentimes we vow not to be like our parents, and yet subconsciously we are. And I recently discovered this. So you and I are working together, and I'm very excited to be working with you and experiencing the program and the tool itself. And one of my most recent discoveries, of course, was like, oh my gosh, I am doing a lot of the things that my father said to me or did to me, even though it's not exactly the same, but in my own way, I'm sort of mimicking it with my kids. And that realization hit me so hard the other day because I'm like, that was the worst. I would never want that. And the fact that I'm doing it from a place that's so not purposeful. And I always try to catch myself, or I try to like course correct and things like that. But you just don't know. And I think there's a part of your rational brain that you tell yourself, oh no, this is different. This is not the same. But I don't think that they're necessarily capturing it that way. And so the fact that
Hmm.
there's this loop and this never ending cycle, I mean, there's so much talk about ending generational cycles because it's so hard to get out of them. I mean, the people that
Yes.
can truly break those cycles and set a new course and do it differently, I truly admire those people because I know the courage that it takes to do that, the depth that they would have had to go through to do the work themselves, inner child, shadow, whatever work it was that they were doing. So if we can clear those things now, I mean, yeah, the generational benefit is immense.
It is, as you said, it's profound actually. It's really profound when your listeners get what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're repeating the patterns of the past. And you're absolutely right, Annabelle. You're not even going to be aware of that you're doing it. You're saying, well, Deepak, I made sure I went through a really rough upbringing, so I made sure I did the exact opposite my parents did. I said, okay, but I'm listening to your voice and you're kind of repeating the same thing you did in a different way, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, you're not doing 100% like your dad because I calculate the percentage of the download, but maybe like 60, 70% like him, and maybe the unresolved issues of your mom you're also doing, by the way. And by the way, you're doing it on your mom's patterns and your grandfather's patterns, and they all died before you were born. You're repeating them as well. So yeah, you kind of are. And because it's unconscious, think of it this way. We have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. So for your listeners, if you imagine this huge iceberg in Alaska, you only see the tiny part of the iceberg above the water. You think, oh, it's pretty small. No, let's go below the water. There's this massive, massive, huge block of ice below the water. So think of the conscious mind as the one part above the water, less than 1%, and the 99.9% is the subconscious mind. That's really the iceberg. That's running the show. So in translation, our subconscious mind is running the show. How many times you say, Deepak, I'm going to punch through, get through this tough situations. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I can have the confidence and courage. And your subconscious says, yeah, right. That's not going to happen. Boom. So it's like two people arm wrestling. This huge, stronger one is the subconscious, 99%. The 1% is like, no, I'm going to fight against that ancestral pattern, like you said.
Yeah.
But you know who's going to win? The subconscious every time. We think the subconscious is here to make us successful, right? Well, the subconscious is only here to keep us safe in a box. And that box may be self-destructive for us, drawing negative people in our lives like I was, or negative relationships and all this stuff. And you think, wait, the subconscious thinks that, why would it draw that to me? Well, it's thinking, I'm keeping you safe in a box. You know, if you try to get too hot, it's going to put the air conditioner on. If you're going to get too cold, it puts the heater on. So what I do is I see those limits that the subconscious has, and I basically say, oh, subconscious, look, let's kind of maybe move this up a little bit. Maybe we can move this down. And subconscious says, well, I'm not used to it. Well, it'll be all right. He says, well, okay. Yeah, it's not too bad. And then I keep going and I keep going. And then totally the limits are pretty much way out of there. But I trained the subconscious that no, this is actually okay. Otherwise, you're just going to be in a box your whole life and you'll repeat the same thing, do the same thing, expecting a different result. And of course, you know how that works when you try to do the same thing over again, trying to expect a different result. So that's why we can do it with this program.
Yeah, I mean, we're essentially just drawn to what's familiar. And whether we know it or not, it's interesting how relationships that we have been in, relationships we're in now, there's something there. And I always think about like, okay, what's the karma we have with that person? But at the same time, it's like there is something there that is pulling you in because it feels safe and it feels familiar to your body, to what you're used to. And again, that's a subconscious thing, right? It's like oftentimes I've vowed, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be with that person or for whatever reason. But, I did a session like a long time ago. Oh no, I had a tarot reading a long time ago, and it was during a time where I was really questioning like what to do and all these things. And I remember the person that read my card said, "You could leave this situation, but you haven't fully understood the lesson here. And if you leave it now, you're going to end up in another situation that is similar because you haven't figured it out." And I'll be very honest here. Oftentimes, my MO has been to run away. Like I've wanted to escape because for me, it was much easier to start over versus staying, like doing the hard work, and that forced me, that one little insight forced me to stay, to have to figure it out because it was easier for me to be like, oh, I'm just going to start over again. Like, no big deal. But if it was going to keep following and chasing me, then there was no point, right?
Exactly, exactly. And in fact, following what you're saying, when I work on clearing these patterns of people, I work on clearing the childhood imprint patterns that they picked up from their parents. Then I work on childhood events like I was bullied or, it could be physical or emotional abuse that happened with other kids or other teachers or whatever. I clear all those things. Then the next phase after that is to work on clearing the relationships,
Mm.
the ones you're in currently and the ones before. Why? Because if you don't, as you said, clear those patterns that you had in those previous relationships or even the current one, or if you want a new one, let's say, and it wasn't a bad one before, you're going to repeat the same thing, like you said, over and over again. So that's why we start with the current relationship or the recent relationship and the ones before that. So you're clearing the whole field. So we're going to the root cause of where the even patterns came from to begin with, and then we're clearing what you drew into your life before, so you don't project that energy forward. Because even during the sessions, I will actually share with the person, and when we're starting out, why you even drew those people in your life. And guess what? They will have certain percentages of your parents and grandparents as a pattern. And that's why, as you said, there's a longing to get to certain people, even if they're limiting to you and emotionally, because they are so familiar to you. I got to go for this person. I
Mm.
don't know why. I don't know why I'm drawn to this person. You know why? Because when I do the vocal match, it'll show that, well, this one is 70% like your father's pattern,
Yeah.
65% like your mother's, 80% like your mother's mother, and 75% like your grandfather. And you didn't even know that. And that's why you're so drawn to them, even if they were all limiting patterns of that person. And then the next person will be different percentages of those grandparents or parents. But it's all amongst that because that's all you know in your hard drive. Remember? You had a clean
Yeah.
hard drive until, so that's why it just takes from that data. So that's why when we clean all the limiting patterns of those relationships and from where it came from to begin with, then you're on a totally different clean slate. Because I've worked with women who drew these neurotic, narcissistic, mean, manipulative, condescending, gaslighting people in their lives over and over and over again. And they came to me, I want to have a nice, loving relationship. How can I have that? I said, you can. Let's clear these patterns. Went to childhood, went to the relationships, the neurotic relationships they drew before, and then they started drawing, right after I started clearing that, wonderful, loving, nurturing relationships, which they never experienced their whole life. And they were telling me, Deepak, I want to go for this person. I think this is it. I said, well, we just are at the first train station, but have fun, date, do whatever you like. but we have further places to go. So I started clearing more and more. And then they said, oh my God, these new people in my life are just unbelievable. And it kept going like that till they finally found what they would call their soulmate. And it was like reading a storybook, actually, the kind of person they drew into their life. Even I was like, wow, they drew the person like that from where they used to be.
Yeah, yeah.
So to tell your listeners, like, regardless of what you went through, you can have a life of happiness, liberation, wonderful relationships, even if you didn't even know what that's like.
The one thing I'm thinking about is how scary it can be to get rid of what you're familiar with, because I can just imagine like you're in a relationship and all of a sudden you're going to start getting rid of all of these beliefs. And then what if that relationship doesn't work anymore? But you've been with that person for like 20 years, right? And I say that because oftentimes we know, like deep down inside, we know what the right thing is. Like if we're in a relationship and we feel like we probably shouldn't be in it, we should probably be leaving this, but something makes us stay. And a lot of times it's fear. And when doing this work, it's, is also about being fully committed to whatever comes up, because I realize like I've had my own journey of healing and figuring things out and self-discovery. And oftentimes it's really scary to just realize that maybe the thing that you had that felt good and at the time, or the thing you were used to, it could be a friend, it could be a romantic relationship, it could be your job,
Mhm.
it provides safety. You're like, it makes me feel good. But once you do the work, you realize it's not. And when you pass that threshold or the realization of it's not, there's a whole nother like area of unknown that can be so intimidating, because now
Right.
it's like a uncharted territory. You're
Yeah,
like, okay, now I have to figure things out all over again, right? So I just
that's
want
right.
to acknowledge that, because I think that's so important to just realize. And I think oftentimes we don't talk about it when we talk about healing work. It's like, let's heal, let's heal. Yeah, awesome. And then what? Because there's this other area, this new chapter that you're opening up that has not been written, essentially.
That's
And
exactly
yeah,
right. That's and following up with what you said, even if that's why even like the example with the relationship, I do it in stages. So they
mm,
start drawing, people who are far better. They're not like the ultimate best when they first start out because there's more stuff to clear below. But they start, that's why I said date, have fun, do whatever. Don't,
yeah.
but don't go all the way because
Oh,
I
right,
still,
right,
you're a
right. Yeah.
work in progress. I tell women that. And then I start clearing more stuff. They go, oh my God, now I mean, come on, Deepak. I mean, this looks really good. I said, no, they're really good, but just hang on with me. So what I'm trying to say is I take you step by step. So you're not just going from here to here because you might like, oh my God, this is too good to
Yeah.
be true. I've never had anything like this. How do I deal with this? Or think of it like this. Here's another example. Let's say somebody wants to do it on the business level, because I work with business executives as well. Let's say they're sweeping the floor and they want to become a manager. Well, it's a different mentality, right? So I cleared the limiting beliefs of them becoming a manager, and then suddenly they become a manager. I've done it many times. And then they say, now, Deepak, I want to become the supervisor of all the managers. I said, okay, well, now you're at a new level, like what you're saying. So I can clear those limiting beliefs to go to the next level here. And then they say, I want to be vice president of this whole place. And I've done this with people. Boom. I can clear the limiting beliefs and they go there. Now, if they're sweeping the floor and they want to be the vice president, it's not going to happen in one shot because they
Yeah.
don't have the skill level, they don't have the emotional strength to deal with different responsibilities. They can only deal with what they're familiar with, right? And what they're trained with. So I can't just go like that. So I do it in stages. And that's why we're always a work in progress. Regardless of how much stuff you clear with me, I can always take you to the next level. Just like a karate person, right? If they're a yellow belt or a black belt, there's a big difference. Both of them can kick my butt, right? But the thing is, the black belt can definitely master over the yellow belt, kick their butt to the yellow belt person. And because even though they're phenomenal martial arts people, within themselves, there's a different quantum level. And that's what I help with each person. I take them at the level that they're ready to.
Mm.
So even if they want to go up to here, I want to be president of this whole thing. And I say, I know you're mopping the floors, but We have to take it step by step, but it will take a fraction of the time, by the way, to get there. So in answer to your, following up with what you said, even though there's fears of going into the unknown, that's why we do it in a step-by-step stage process. So I prepare you, okay, now that you've mastered that, let's conquer your fears of moving forward from this point. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And you're right. You're not going to, well, you could definitely jump from, point A to point Z, but that leap would be so much harder versus doing the
Absolutely.
steps, right? Like, for example, people that are like, I want to be a millionaire. And like one of the big things is like, sure, you can get there, but if you got there today with where you are right now, the thing is you might not even be able to handle that because with me being a millionaire, there's also responsibility. There's also you have to live life differently, right? It's not just the desire is not enough. There's learning and there are those stages to get there. And so I appreciate the fact that there are these like steps and
That's
it's a
right.
progress.
How many stories have we heard, Annabelle, of people who won the
Yeah.
lottery?
Yeah.
They won, like you're saying, a millionaire. They won $1 million or even 10 million, and they lost it in months. All of it. In fact, not only did they lose that money, they were in debt.
Yeah.
How is this possible? You know how it's possible? With the programming from their childhood. They were brought up in scarcity. We don't have enough. We won't survive. You have to, scrape for every penny you have, or you don't deserve wealth and success. Only the rich people deserve it. So when you're one of the rich people, oh, they're the bad people because we're the ones struggling to make a living, and those people have all the benefits. Now I'm that person. Well, I don't want to be that negative person that I associated with as a kid because they were programmed from a young age. So then they sabotage it to go back to that original state they were when they were a kid. You see what I'm saying? Now, this is not logical. You might say, Deepak, I don't
It
buy
feels
that.
safe. It feels safe.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It feels safe. I said, "Yeah, that's
And
not logical." I
familiar.
said, well, guess what? 99% of your life is being run by a part of your body, the mind, subconscious. That's not logical whatsoever. It doesn't know the difference between past, present, or future. So if something happened when you're a kid, like the person was in poverty or struggling or all these horrible emotional abuses that happen, it's going to refer to that in the current time like it's today. It doesn't know the difference.
Uh,
That's why when we go to the subconscious level, I always start with the childhood because that's where everything started from. And even if someone was given millions of dollars, they don't know how to manage it. They
yeah.
don't know how to be responsible because they never had those skills. That's why you need to be properly set up so that then when you actually do get that, if you're clear of these limiting beliefs and structure the confidence and to deal with all that, like I talked about those levels, then you will be able to deal with that, even if you never had that since your childhood.
Mm, yeah. So, Deepak, anything else that you want to share about the program or someone you've
Sure.
worked with or anything like that?
Sure, absolutely. There's one lady I worked with. She had so much passion in life, singing, dancing, music, painting. Wonderfully talented lady. But all these unfortunate relationship issues happened and other unfortunate issues happened, again, because of childhood programming that she had before. So then she basically lost the mojo. So she ended up going on these antidepressants for 30 years. So she came to me, Deepak, I heard about your program. Do you think you could help me? Because I just don't have any passion in life anymore. So I started working on her and she started feeling really good. And she said, you know what? Can I get off of these medications? I said, well, I'm not a medical doctor. Go ask your doctor if he can lower it by a certain percentage, maybe 10. So she asked her doctor, I'm feeling much better. He goes, okay, let's lower it by 20%. Let's see how you're feeling. You might have to go back, but let's see. Went off, lowered it by 20%. She said, I still feel good. In fact, I feel better. So then she went back to the doctor. He goes, lower it by 50%, then later by 75, then eventually 100%. And she still was feeling on top of the world. She got all her mojo back. She started painting, singing, dancing, all these other creative things and speaking. And she said, Deepak, I got my mojo back. I'm jogging, I'm exercising, I'm taking care of myself. And she looked fantastic. And she even looked younger. And the reason I say that is, well, there's another side to this work.
I was going to bring this up, but I'm curious. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Women definitely love this part. It's kind of
Yeah.
but that lady, okay, who had 30 years of depression, She went to see one of her friends after I worked on her and cleared all these limiting patterns. She was full of joy and happiness and passion in life and doing all the things she loved. Her friend saw her and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you for 30 years and you look the same as when I saw you back then." Okay, who's the plastic surgeon you're going to? What's his name or his or her name? She said, "Oh, his name is Deepak." Oh, he's a damn good plastic surgeon. She goes, "No, no, 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 it's not no, no, it's a voice and no, no, no,
What?
no, he's really good." Okay, I want to see what he did because boy, you haven't aged at all. You look exactly the same. Yeah. Why is that? Because I'm taking you back to a time before you had those negative limiting emotions, which weighed on us, right? The emotions literally age us faster than normal. They weigh on us, they drag our face down, they make us sloop our body. They also age the body prematurely, big time. So when you go back, if you take all that weight of those emotions out, the body goes, whoosh, everything kind of goes back to the setting before you had those limiting patterns. So yeah, there's a reverse aging aspect. I don't talk about that often, but it's there. Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. I feel like that part is not talked about often, but I totally believe that. And I mean, again, going back to the body, right? Like all of the things that we're carrying, yes, it's emotional, yes, it's mental, but it's also physical because it's living within us. And so the thing that you were talking about with like looking younger or, people can lose weight oftentimes. I mean, we say like we're carrying emotional weight, but the weight then truly becomes like physical baggage that we're carrying and weighing us down. Like,
Exactly. I have
so
cases of that too, where people lost 10
yeah.
pounds when I was not even working on their weight, just releasing their emotions.
Yeah, today, exactly today, I was scrolling through my phones, trying to find a picture for something. And I went all the way back to like 2012 or 2013 or something. And I was looking at myself and I was like, oh man. And I mean, of course, I was a lot younger back then, but like I looked a lot different than I look now. And not to attribute it to like anything in particular, but I know that I've done a lot of work on
Oh yeah,
myself and,
absolutely.
especially with something in my face, I kept looking at my face because it felt so round in these photos. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just my age because I'm a lot older and like the face is thinning or something. I don't know. But I truly attest it to a lot of the healing work that I've done that's helped to like slowly let some of these things go. And, you know, yeah.
That's fantastic. No, that absolutely. You're releasing all this emotional baggage, like you said, which is a weight. It's an actual energetic weight. You can't weight
Right.
on scale. But when you release the emotional weight, then even the physical weight, it's done happen with so many of my clients happens. But their whole immune system, every session you do with me, your whole immune system gets turbo boosted. That's another amazing thing.
Mm.
So, because you're taking all the stress out of the equation so the body can go back to its natural healing phase. It naturally wants to be healthy, you see. So when we get ourselves out of our own way, you might say, which is our subconscious mind. So, a lot of people think of a Lamborghini, right? I mean, maybe there's a better car than that, but it's a pretty high-end car, right? We know what most of us do. We put this 5-year-old child in the driver's seat. It can't even touch the pedals. It probably has to use sticks to push the pedals. But we do that. We let it drive the car, and we're sitting in the back seat hoping for the best. But the most beautiful car in the world will feel like, oh my God, get me out of this luxurious car. You
Mm.
know, well, but what the problem is, we put our subconscious to drive it. The subconscious has the mentality of a 5-year-old, that childlike innocence in that way. But it has so much power, Annabelle. It can manifest things, create things, change reality, put raw situations in our life that we could not physically on our own do with our conscious mind. No way. That's the power behind it, but it should be in the back seat with the child restraint. And it'll be the energy behind the car. It's going to give it like a rocket fuel into the skies. But we should be driving the car, not the 5-year-old child, because the
Right.
subconscious will just take you boom, boom, all over the place. And so you tell the subconscious, love you very much. I respect you. I'll keep you in the back seat, power this car, this rocket ship, and I will steer it. Now, which is what we do in these sessions, now you got it in the right alignment.
Yeah. And I'll also say that I think since working together, I think it's really, really cool that you can see like a physical map of the emotions that show up. And one thing I'll say for people listening is that, you know, it's so interesting how you don't even realize, like when I started off the session, I was like, I'm fine. Like, I think this is a problem. Like, this is a memory that pops up for me, from time to time. And yeah, I think it's upsetting, but that's about it, right? It's like there's a part of us that like controls it. I think our rational brain controls the actual feeling, and we try to make it seem like maybe it's not as big of a deal. But then it's so funny because then you're like, well, hey, Annabelle, there's actually fear here, there's overwhelm, there's all these other emotions. And, you know,
Yeah.
and then you're like, wait, really? I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Like, I didn't think it was that bad. And that to me is
Mhm.
so interesting that just from the talking, you can truly like pinpoint the exact emotion that is like blocked there. It's not just like, oh yeah, this is a problem area, like the exact
Mhm.
emotion. And then we can then dig into like, okay, well, what was the fear? And like once we start talking about it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense for sure. There was fear there, but you don't think about it that way.
Exactly, exactly. And even if I'm like, so for example, if I'm working with a woman and I say, I know you're coming to see me for the first time, so what's challenging you? Well, Deepak, everything's a bowl of roses. Everything's fantastic. I'm doing great. Things are cruising well. I said, well, you must be here for a reason then if everything's so great, right? I mean, is there some reason you might be here? Then I'll listen to her voice. See, because I use this computer besides the actual physical computer. And since I've been doing this for 20 years, this picks it up even before the computer software map does the voice map analysis, which you're talking about, which is the emotional voice map analysis. So I'll say to her, can you tell me what you're really, really upset or angry and pissed off about? No one would know that. What? You think I'm angry about something? Suddenly the voice changes.
Mm.
Yeah, I think not you're angry. I think you're very angry, though you're saying it's a bowl of cherries. And she said, okay, all right. You want to know the truth? 2 weeks ago, my boyfriend just dumped me. Can you believe that jerk? We've been going in this relationship for so long. How could he do that to me? And then my boss fired me. Can you believe that? What a jerk they were. I can't believe that. I worked so hard. I was like, whoa, who's this person now? Okay, well,
So
that's the
even
real.
though they said like everything's fine, right? So it's like your voice doesn't lie. Your body's
Your
not
voice
moving
will
to lie.
never lie. It's the most accurate reflection of your subconscious mind, which is 99% of the equation, and it's running your life. And even though you may not be aware of it, I will pick up precisely, no subjectivity whatsoever, what is going on in your subconscious. Because there's other people who are subconsciously disconnected, like they don't even know what they're feeling. But so
Mhm.
I'll have to tell them with my analysis, like, "Wait, you're feeling this sadness." I am? I said, yeah, you are. In fact, not a very deep sadness. Let's dive into that. And because they're disconnecting from it because it was so painful from the past, so that's why they disconnected. So what I do is I'm like pulling the ropes in to reconnect them back to their self. Then suddenly they connect to the emotions. Then it releases all that sadness and grief that they were storing from the past that was too painful before to deal with. And now they're able to release it and face it and become stronger as a person. And then from that place, they can go to a place where they feel happy for no reason. It's hard for people to even conceptualize that, but I can take you to that place from someone who was always in grief all the time because that pattern repeats. It's almost like I don't know how to say it, but it's almost like an addiction. The subconscious is addicted to living those same limiting emotions over and over again because that's all it's used to, even if it's not serving us.
Right.
So, so when I'm able to map it out, like someone looking at it objectively, seeing the forest and trees, I said, look, I know where you are and I can see the whole thing because I'm not emotionally tied to what you are or the situation you're in. So I can help you objectively to see what's going on and send you what frequencies you need to release those patterns in a very eloquent process.
Now, what about the grandparents, right? So I get the parents, right? Because I think most of us have stories that we can talk about our parents, right?
Yeah,
Unless maybe we were adopted or we didn't meet our parent or something like that.
correct.
But going to the grandparents, for example, both of my grandfathers died before I was born. And I remember when we got to that part, you're like, it's okay if you don't like remember, like you don't have anything to say about them. Like I can still capture that.
Yeah.
So how is it that you can still capture a subconscious pattern or an emotion from that, even though I'd never met them, right? I've seen pictures, but obviously heard stories about who they were, but other than that, no
That
personal shared experience.
that's a great question, Annabelle. Excellent question. So in the first half hour of the first hour of the first session, first hour and a half of the first session, I will do what's called a voice map analysis of your childhood and also of your parents and grandparents. So I'll create what's called a conscious mind voice map where you talk about yourself briefly, which is 1% of your being. And then from that data, I'll get the subconscious mind voice map, the 99% that's running your life, from that conscious emotional voice map. From there, I will ask you to briefly talk about your mom, and then maybe for 10 or 15, 20 seconds. And I will create an emotional voice map of your mom and then of your dad. And then the last part I'll get a recording of when we start the sessions is of your grandparents. So great question. What if all your grandparents died before you were born? Two of them died in your case before you were born.
Mhm.
Well, how am I going to record them? A lot of people say, Deepak, let's skip that part because they're not there. I say, oh no, they're running the show big time. We haven't even got to that part of the sessions. So what happens is then I'll tell them, okay, we need to get all the recordings. So mom's mom, okay, she died before you were born. Okay. Well, did you ever see a picture of your mom's mom? I think I remember. Yeah, I said, okay, so all I ask you to do is describe in detail what she looked like in that picture. She was this tall, her hair was like this, her eyes looked like this, whatever you want to say about her. So about 15, 20-second recording. Now they're in an altered state, by the way, in a subconscious state that I take them to the client before I record all these because I need to access that part of their subconscious to get this. So then I will get a voice map. Now they might say, well, my grandma was like this and this. It might sound like a calm like voice, but in the voice map of the grandmother, it might show a lot of rage or a lot of deep sadness. And there's no way just listening, yeah, she was this tall, her hair color's this, her eye color's this. She used to cook, for us and make stuff like that. But yet it shows these extreme emotions, and you're like, how did it know that? And then I'll do a recording of the father's father who also died before you were born, and it might show addictive patterns, or it might show a lot of depression or low self-worth or low self-esteem. And you never met them. They died before you were born. And then there's a question. So there's that. Now, what if you didn't even have a picture of your grandparents? And some people that I work with, the parents, for whatever reason, never even mentioned about the grandparents. So then what do you do? So this is what I do in that case. I'll say, imagine your father's here, like if we're talking about grandfather, and next to him is this black silhouetted person. And imagine that's your father's father. Now you know your father had a father. And though he died way before you were born, the father's father, imagine, put your focus on this person here. This is your father, this is your father's father. Even if it's a black silhouetted person you can't see the face of. Know that that's your father's father. And then I want you to say to me, I don't know anything about my father's father. And keep repeating that. The person will often say to me, Deepak, that doesn't even make sense. Why would I say I don't know anything about him? I said, well, you don't consciously know anything about him, but your subconscious knows everything in the field for all your ancestors. So
Mm.
say that. So, and you're being truthful about it too. So they say, I don't know anything about my father's father, but they're focusing their attention on that image I told them to do. And then after I record that, I don't know anything about my father's father. I don't know anything about my mother's mother. I don't, it might sound like that. To an average person, it's like Deepak, it's probably not going to show any energy at all. It doesn't sound like that. I'll say, oh no, watch what I'm doing. That might show extreme fear and worry and overwhelm. It might show extreme low self-esteem. It might show a lot of rage and anger, even though I don't know anything about this person. Isn't that amazing? And all the maps of all the grandparents may look completely different, even though they said, I don't know anything about this person. I don't know anything about this person. Because when I'm accessing at the subconscious level, it's accessing it energy from the energetic field. See, we have our physical body and we have energetic fields around us. There's like, I think, 12 dimensions. So we're accessing that information from the other fields around our energy field, which influence us. And so that's how I can capture that data, even though they knew nothing about them. So when you start getting to the grandparent level, then that's like the ultimate.
Would you say that, in addition to the field, the fact that you got things from your parents, your mom or your dad, they also are bringing with them what they got from their parents, right? I mean, I sort of
Correct.
see it as like this domino effect, right? It's like they all got it from somebody else, from like their parent, their ancestors, the people that they were close with. And then you are getting that too, at like an nth degree type of thing.
Correct. Correct. Well, I'm able to even quantify something subjective. What percentage of those limiting patterns did you get from your father, who got stuff from his father, of course,
Right,
but you were directly, they procreated you.
right.
So you want to first clear what they downloaded to you from them, from their own perception and how they view the world.
Mm,
So in other words, if the grandparent had severe depression, maybe the father had some depression, maybe half of that, maybe not the full amount. So you'll get a certain percentage of that. But then you might get a bigger brunt of the download from the direct grandparent who had the severe issue, percent, which I can quantify. So you see what I'm saying? And everyone has a different perception of it, like someone may have said, life is unfair. I was given a raw deal. And then the other person might say, well, yeah, it was, but you know what? That's how it is. And maybe we just have to become stronger from it. It's just how you view the world. So those perceptions download to us. And yes, that forms how we see the world. So we think it's our own view, but it's a collective percentages from all of those parents and grandparents that form how we think we see the world. So we think this is my view, Deepak. I was like, well, that's your view based on everybody else's view, you see? And that's why we draw relationships, people, and events that match the different people in our life, like the parents and grandparents. I can guarantee you, I can map anybody that you drew into your life and tell you, who those people actually represent. Certain percentage of grandfather, certain percentage of
right.
grandmother. I can tell you for each one because that's all you know in your energy field.
The other thing I was thinking about was environment as we were talking about the grandparents, because, both of my parents came from different countries, and in both of their countries, they grew up very poor. I mean, speak about scarcity mindset. I mean, one came from the former Yugoslavia and the other one's from Ecuador, and their upbringings were rough in their own way. And I was just thinking about that. It's like, oh, their environment impacted them so much because, of course, they came into this world or just came to the United States with that type of mentality. And I grew up with their mentality, even though I grew up in the United States and the culture was different. Like their culture was so strong in which they imparted on me that it makes sense. Like I stayed with it, even though I never experienced what they experienced, their stories and just the way that they viewed life really set the stage for, I guess, the things that I'm working through now, which I never lived. Like I never experienced what they experienced, but somehow it like stuck with me.
That's exactly right. So indirectly, as you have, we all are re-experiencing what our parents and grandparents did
Mm,
in our own lives, unbeknownst to us. So if they had gone through poverty and struggle and strife and physical and emotional abuse or whatever, like or being suppressed, that carries down to the next generation. Like I'll work on people in different countries and I can almost kind of figure out, even before they tell me about all their family's issues, what those people of that country, what they went through. So let's say it was a country that was controlled by another country. So those people would be in suppression, in submission to whoever was controlling their country. So whole the population there, anyone I worked with in that country would have the same kind of mentality. We are controlled by someone else. We have to obey what they say. We have to agree, even if we don't like it. So that goes in the collective as well, like what you said. Besides, of course, and then it goes, of course, to your grandparents and parents, as I said, but they were all part of that bigger collective thing of being suppressed by another country. Now, if the country is the oppressor country, that's another story altogether, because then the people who were there were like, yeah, we ruled you guys for so many years. They're not thinking that. I mean, but it
right.
goes in their thought like, yeah, we ruled your country for like 100 years. So yeah, we kind of know how to control people. So they have that sort of thinking in general. So based on which country it is. So you're right. The collective conscience of the whole peoples can also be part of that situation that the grandparents and parents picked up on, like you said with your grandparents.
Wow, that's so interesting. I mean, I think I knew that. Like, of course, that makes sense, but I just hadn't thought of it. And now it's like opening up this whole new realization for me. And I'm like, oh man, I need to journal about this. I need
Abs
to like write this
Absolutely.
down because so many more things make sense now, you know? Because when you start doing healing work, right, you start to pinpoint certain things, this relationship, this trauma, and you think of it in experiences. But when you really start to zoom out, because that's sort of the zoomed in view, when you zoom out to the collective piece, right? It's like, what was the time? What was the era, right? What was the decade like? And you know, even going further, the culture like, right? There are so
Hmm.
many of those patterns that I don't think we necessarily think about because we're focusing on like the one, the individual versus, okay, what was actually going on when I was born in the 1980s and what was going on for my parents because they've then brought it on to me and so forth. And of course, I've heard their stories time and time again. They were almost like bedtime stories, which to be honest, were not like were not fairy tale in any way. Just yeah, I grew up with those kind of bedtime stories. So of course,
Yeah.
as like a kid, right? Like you end up, yeah, they're like ingrained in you. And now I'm
Yeah.
like, shit, I need to get rid of that stuff, you know?
Yeah, and like you said,
Yeah,
it was actually without their bedtime stories were actually programming.
yeah,
Remember I said age 0 to 7
yeah,
especially, which that probably was, or even up to 8. It's literally programming you. They didn't realize it, but yeah, it's true.
yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm still digesting this, but I love it. I love it because it's
Yeah.
so interesting. And I think as you're doing healing work, like if you can then go into that generational piece and the collective piece,
Yeah.
that's so impactful and it adds that other layer. So,
Absolutely. And earlier in the presentation, you were talking about what somebody might say, well, Deepak, I was adopted. So how would you
mm,
work with that? Right. And I've worked with a lot of adopted people, even currently. So the way I do that is I work on the biological parents. It doesn't matter if they knew them or not, by the way, and the parents who raised them. Because remember, since 0 to 12 is the imprinting age, right? So even if they were adopted, the biological parents still, the parents and grandparents downloaded stuff to that kid unbeknownst to them. They may have never probably seen them. But then you have the ones who raised them, and they're literally programming the child from the time, they got them, maybe at birth or soon after, and all the way up to 12 or 13. So they're all influencing that kid, you see. So I work on both the biological and the ones who raised them, both the equally the powerful impact. So yeah, so that's how I work with adopted people.
well, and I think it's what you said too earlier about the different stages, right? Stage one, procreation, stage two, being in the womb, right? So yeah, you may not have known your biological parents, but you were still impacted by stages one and two.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
big time.
yeah.
And you'll be even doing actions. But that's the interesting thing is the people I've worked on, they're saying, Deepak, why am I drawn to these situations? I'll say, because your biological mom was. But
Mm,
I never met her. I never saw her ever in my life. I say, I know, but you're living that life that through her. I mean, you're living her life through you, excuse me, without you realizing it. And you're also living the life of your adoptive mom and dad at the same time as well. So we just add a few more steps, but we
yeah,
can,
yeah,
it's no issues to, yeah, but you're right. Didn't matter if you knew them or not. All those 4 stages happen.
yeah, yeah. So Deepak, where can people learn more about you, you know, check out your work, maybe book a session if they're interested?
Absolutely. So if anyone's interested in what I've shared here or inspired, that, hey, no matter what I've gone through, whatever horrible things I've gone through, there's hope yet. I can have a life free of that into liberation, peace, joy, and happiness in my life. All they have to do is go to my website, which is www.fastanxietyhelp.com. If you go to that website, you can read about my work, check out the testimonials tab to see all the people I've helped from all ages, all walks and backgrounds. And then there's also a place you can click to sign up for a complimentary 15-minute consult with me, no obligations, where I will listen to what's going on in your life because I customize my sessions for your unique needs, what goals you want to achieve, where you want to go, what you want to release. I'll customize these sessions for your unique needs to help take you there. So that's what I recommend. Go to my website, fastanxietyhelp.com, sign up for a complimentary 15-minute consult. So it doesn't matter what you went through, I care for all of your listeners dearly, and I want the best for them, and I can help you to get there.
Awesome. Thank you, Deepak. And I will also mention that for those of you that are listening, I think they get $100 off, like a session with you.
If they found out about my work through you, if they sign up for the initial foundational 3 sessions, I will give a discount of $100 off. Absolutely.
That's so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annabelle.
Thank you for listening. If you're interested in becoming a client and working with me, visit me at nunatherapy.com or follow me on social media at Nuna Therapy for regular content and inspiration. Until next time.